Hello, this is Gene, and you have to know that I was going to talk about the little video that Marcus Rashford released yesterday or the day before. And I'm going to try to be very unbiased when it comes to Marcus because he came from the youth team. He's been in that club for 15, 18 years, just like Greenwood, another guy that I think is getting maligned way too much. And he should be back playing for us, in my mind. So I'm going to talk about what I think has changed in his game, and then I'll talk about what he said. You know, the two or three things that he talked about. I'll talk about the actual how his PR team put that together with the music in the background. It's just, I thought that was the wrong way to go. I have no problem. I think that this is how it is now that these players are going to come out and I guess somewhat defend themselves, and then where I think we should go in the future and for him. He's a human being, and I think that he's been told a little bit too much that he's better than he actually is. And I think when it's the whole story when these young celebrities in Hollywood make so much money so early, everybody just says yes to them and never say no to them. It happens a lot earlier on in athletic careers as well. A lot of really good female tennis players when they're 15, 16 take over the tour, and then 10 years later they're off and they have other issues, drugs and all that. And this is what you see with the athletes, and you see it as well as with celebrities. I think part of what he wants is he wants to have this brand. And there are a lot of people that have been defending him, and there are some people just cannot actually give their opinion without just him and hawing about it. So I'm going to talk about that really quick, and then I'm going to talk about where we got, why we're here now, and what's the future. Mark Goldbridge this morning on That's Football, he didn't put it on United Stand, just sat there and just straddled the fence with him. He is just this wishy-washy commentator about stuff, and he will not come out to the very end, and then he'll actually give his full opinion about something. He did this under the Greenwood. For 18 months, he sat there and said, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to talk about it. And then when the club came out and said, we've got all this information, there was this actual review of everything, there is more stuff that's not in the public domain, and we support Marcus, we support Mason, and we believe we believe him. And then he said that the club was just hypocritical or whatever, and he's not real. He's an entertainer. He's not a real fan. Yeah, he goes crazy when they win or we win or whatever. But he has now changed himself to his own brand as well, and he just says things that he can't be succinct about his actual belief system when it comes to Rashford. 18 months ago, even when Marcus was playing, it's probably his best season, goal-wise, he was still saying that we should sell him to PSG and get the 80 million. So, whatever. Okay, how did we get here? Let's talk about Marcus here. He obviously just came to the scene when we had all these injuries, and I think Van Gaal bring him up against Arsenal, and he got 2 goals, and he basically went from strength to strength. But if you look at his statistics, he's been up and down. His 7-8 years that he's been at the first team. And he's lost his ability to create goals. As much as we say about Bruno actually has the ability to show chances, right? Regardless of how he plays on he's running around with his head cut off. He still shows the ability to actually create chances. And he's never scored more than 17 goals in the Premiership. Now, last year he had 30 goals because we were in a lot of different competitions, and he plays pretty well against teams that are not at the lower level. He has good games against Arsenals and Manchester City and all that stuff earlier in the career, especially. So he's kind of that player. He's never been world class, but he's could be a good part of a team. And the whole idea was when we got Sancho, we'd have Martial up top, and you'd have Marcus on the other side, and this team would probably tear team apart if they did everything on both sides of the ball. That they track back, that they went for the shirt, all that stuff, that we would have a very, very potent front line. Injuries and attitudes and other things just didn't really mesh together. Now, Martial and Rashford, when they're together, I think that he is very comfortable in that setting where he can get the ball to Martial and Martial gets it back to him and vice versa. I think they look at each other at the same level, so they don't not just freeze out other players on the team, which I think Marcus has a problem doing that because he's been told now for at least 5 years that he's the best player on the team. So he basically freezes out other people on the team when he has guys that are open. And we want a striker, if he really is that, to somewhat be selfish when he's at a position to score. But there were a lot of times last year where he was not passing the ball back. Now, I have seen different things this year that shows that he has the ability to cross it, to pass it and stuff. But that game against Fulham, when he's at the top of the box and he's trying to push it to somebody else, instead of taking a guy on or taking a shot, when we're trying to get that goal, it shows that his confidence is really not where it should be. And that's because it's probably a position he doesn't want to be in, which is fair. So, what do we do about this? Let's talk about what Marcus was 5-6 years ago and what he is now. He's not the same player. He has somewhat improved in other areas, but he's slower now. And I've been talking about this for almost 3 years. He's lost a step, which is crazy. You know, he's 26, and somehow he lost a step. And I want to think what happened here, and I want to take a parallel with the running backs in the NFL. Now, running backs have like a 4 or 5 year career where they're at the top of their game. And it's normally because they get beat up so much that they never get back to the real form that they had when they first came in. And I think that Marcus has the same thing. He carried a lot of injuries, and Ole continually played him in so many games when he should have been rested. And I think this is all coming back right now. And he doesn't have the ability to actually separate himself from the fullbacks or the quarterbacks anymore. He doesn't have that. We saw it against Forest. He had 2, I believe, white guys that he was in front of, and they both came back and got to him. He had the ball in front of him. I think he actually touched it for a second, and then the other guy came in, and I thought was probably a foul. Not sure if it was actually in the penalty box. It was in between that or in it. But he actually stayed up with Marcus. And if you look back when he first came in, and the goals he had against City, against guys like Kyle Walker, who are one of the fastest guys in the league, that he was going past him. He's lost that. And I think that when he started losing that, I think he lost a little bit of his confidence. Now, he still has the ability against certain teams, like Wolves or something like that he can get behind players. And he has the ability to score when he's on form. So I think when he was going through all this stuff, that he was actually committed to the team. Still has some issues in his game, but still committed to his game. He was playing when he was hurt. And I think in the offseason, he said, you know what, I don't want to get hurt anymore. So he put on some weight. It's very possible he was doing other things. I mean, I look at his body type. He looks a little bit like LeBron now. I think there's probably some PSD or performance enhancers that's going on there. So he's stronger up top. We don't really see that, though, because against Fulham as well, these are guys that are not at the same level that he is, and they're just holding him off the ball. If he's going to play in that position, he has to be able to hold him off, and he's not any bigger than Rashford is, or Højlund is. Højlund has played that position more, but okay. So he gets frustrated. That's fine, but me as a fan, all we just want you to see that you actually want to play for the team, that you're going to do whatever you can to do. Because it is a privilege to play for Manchester United, and he knows this. That whole interview not really necessary, and it's not necessary to have the music in the background and to make it look like he's a victim. I don't like that. And then you're going to still put racial stuff in it as well and say you wouldn't be saying this if he was somebody else. Well, we said it about Ronaldo. We said it about other players that played at this team that didn't give all to this team. And if you didn't do it, you were out of the team. And that's what happened to. When King defied the manager, when Beckham had his eyes looking somewhere else and not focusing on the team, even though we all know that Beckham would do whatever he could do to do anything on the pitch to play for Manchester United, that it's one of the worst things ever when he left the team, in my mind. So I think what we have to understand that he's a different type of player. He was never considered the next player coming from the youth team to dominate and be like the 92 team. I remember going back before he came up, and there were guys on YouTube talking about the youth team, and nobody talked about him. They said he was a one trick pony, that he has speed and that's good, but he wasn't the full article. And then he came up and did what he did. And I think that once he got that, and he had decent years, he had 10, 11 goals, 17 last year in the Premiership, which is all decent if he's going to be out there on the left. Those are good returns. But Ronaldo was out there and he scored 30 in the Premiership. So I think what we've done is we have elevate players to think that they're as good at the levels these other players are. He's not Mbappe. He's not at that level. He's a good player in the Premiership. We can talk about would he actually play for City. I think he would. I think that, but he would just be like Grealish. He would play probably 15, 20 games, and he would be healthy, and he could go out there and just go 100% and not worry about getting injuries. I think this all kind of started with Ole, how he managed him, and he was carrying an injury, and you can never fault the commitment that he had to Manchester United, the team, and all that during that time. He clearly had that. He was like Bruno at that point. He would never be out of the game. I'm going to do whatever I can to play. And he had other great players around him on their day that were one of the best in the world. When Pogba was one of the best world, he just knew enough. But at that point, he had that. And he had players, Herrera and stuff around him that forced this. And fans like players like Herrera that always gives. They're not as good technically. They're not as talented as some of these other players are, but they always give. That's why people like guys like Evans, the Welsh guy that we got for a while, and now he's with Leeds. I don't know if he's at Leeds anymore. He came in. I'm losing his name. Dan James. He always gave, right? Clearly he's not the same level talent-wise as Rashford was, but he knew what he was going to do on that side. And the same thing to a lesser extent as Anthony. Anthony will give everything he has. And we'll keep waiting for him to actually get to the next level. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that or not. So here we are right now. He takes out this video, and I think he's been led with the wrong people. And these are probably his friends. It happens with all this. LeBron has got everybody around him, his friends that he growing up, and he only trusts those people. And these people don't. They just follow him around, and they just get the money from him, and they think there's something that's going to actually quell the problems that he has for playing for Manchester United. So the question has to say, what's the end game here? Is this a way for him to get out of Manchester United? All he's got to do is put in a transfer request. Now he probably won't, because in his mind he's so committed to the team that he wants Manchester United to come back and win the Premiership and win a Champions League. I think deep in his heart he wants that, because he's a kid. He's a Manchester United fan. You would think now that with Rasmus is there, another Manchester United fan, that he's going to elevate his game to get to that position that we can actually challenge, because those two players can be part of a team that can challenge for the Premiership. Of course they can. And if we're a full team and we get a couple other pieces, we could definitely challenge. We might lose 5-0 to City on Sunday, but it doesn't mean that 3 or 4 guys here and a couple guys out and everything else that we can't challenge. It's just we can. So what's behind all that? Is it his way that I'm going to just soften the blow so 10 years from now when I want to come back to the club, that I won't be a pariah because I left the team. I mean, it's rare. Most people don't have a problem when they come back. Maybe Inks might, but most people don't have a problem when they come back. So, and of course, he was from the youth team. I don't think there'd ever be a point that they would turn their back on him. The problem we have is when we see him on the pitch and he's showing all his emotions, and he's not backtracking or anything like that, or not pressing. And Ten Hag gets pelted because he continually plays him, and we keep waiting for him to do something. And as a fan, I keep waiting for him to make a difference in a game, and I just don't see it. Um, a lot of it, I think, a lot of that is physical. It's mental, of course, but I think he's lost a step. And I think that the rest of the league has found out how to deal with him. He's still going to he could still get 15, 17 goals a year because we play better on the break than we do just breaking down teams. And eventually the ball's going to get to him and he's going to score. So out of 38 games in the Premiership, he's going to get 30 or 50 really good chances to score, and he's going to maybe make 20% of that. And when he's playing well and the ball goes in for him, he's going to make 30 or 40% of that, and that's what he's done. He's had 55 shots this year, and he's got 5 goals. So that's that's 10%. So it's just when I'm listening to people and they're like, they just won't actually say what the issue is. There's a mental issue. His confidence is not where it should be. There's something that's driving him away from the passion that he has for the game. I don't know what that is. He wants to be brand Marcus, I don't know. Or maybe he's this one introverted guy that just wants to play football, and he doesn't know how to get rid of the people around him, so he can just focus on that. Or physically, he's not the player that he was, and he never really was ever looked out to be that type of player. He was always a one-trick pony. He got a little bit better on the ball, but he has the same issues. He doesn't look up. He doesn't pass the ball much. He gets himself in a cul-de-sac around other players. And the problem we have right now, he's not a young kid anymore. He is one of the senior players on the team, and he cannot act that way on the pitch. That influences all the younger players, and they'll do the same shit. You see, Garnacho did that for a little bit, but he changed. And I think that's because Garnacho and Ten Hag are always having this conversation. He says, look, he's played 23 consecutive games, which is crazy for a young player like that. And I think that you see that it's starting to wear on him a little bit. And the fact that he's playing in the wrong position, even though he went back the other side, and he probably might play that way if Rashford plays up top against City. I just don't understand why that came out now. I think maybe this has happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the whole Belfast thing, that he put that out, and then he decided when I'm going to actually put it out there. They had to go back and edit and everything and make it look like he's the victim and all that. And I think it was a wrong move. But this idea that we question his fate in his team or the team or the club and all that stuff. No, all we really want you to do is actually you give a shit. If you give a shit, that you track back, that you actually give a challenge on somebody, or you go in 50-50 balls, that we know that you actually give a shit. Most fans are going to say he gave everything he could that day, and City was the better team. I've done that so many times as a Manchester United team or player. When we've gone out and given everything, and we just got beat by a better team, then all you got to do is just clap your hands for the other team and clap for your own team. Too many times in the past, we see players that don't, and they just do stupid shit. And I think that Pogba coming back in this team kind of changed everything, and he was the senior player, and they all looked up to him because he just won the World Cup. And I think this type of attitude just went through the entire team, and Mourinho tried to get rid of it, and it just wasn't enough. That was like the beginning of the player power in Manchester United. And you get rid of him and you bring other players and all that stuff, and it continually goes up and down. The other issue is just simply this: are we that good enough? Sometimes it looks like that we are, right? Not so much this year. Last year there were times where geez, we're playing with City head to head and we're doing pretty well here. 50-50, 50% of the team time we're actually better than they are. But we've kind of regressed this year, and I think that's with injuries and everything else, and the actual star that we actually play. I understand the frustration, because for a striker you have to score goals, and that's all important. But I don't understand when you think that people are upset with you because you have tattoos. Nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody gives a shit, really, if you go out and party at all, as long as you know when you're supposed to be back and be ready to play at practice. It's simple shit like that you would never allowed when you were trying to get up. If you saw a first team player doing that stuff, you're like, damn, he's stupid. I'm going to take his spot. There are people behind you. They're going to take your spot as well. So what's the actual issue here? Do you want to leave the team, Marcus, or you really want to fight for this team? You and Bruno have to be the leaders of this team. You have to. You're the senior players, the players that people think are the best talented players. I don't necessarily believe that. If you just had some of the other attributes that you had when you first came into the first team, you'd be fine. Nobody would be questioning anything. They would not. They'd say, oh God, he was right in the position, he just missed it. Or it was a great defensive player. Or he's doing everything for the team. So many times we lost to teams in the Champions League final or something like that, and we were just outplayed that day. But we knew that everybody on that pitch gave everything. And that's all you can ever want from your players. Yes, we're jaded because we've had such a great last 30 years being a supporter for Manchester United. But we also understand what it means to be at the top. And when we start losing it, and we've seen what happened at Liverpool, it took for 20 years to do anything else, and we don't want to be here. And we're here. We're 10 years since we won a championship. And we don't have players that apparently don't really give a shit about the team. Not saying that's Marcus, but I think there's a lot of things here. I'm not sure that this was the right thing to talk about. I think he could have said his words a little bit differently. But whatever, this is where we are right now. It's almost like I've got to do this. And I'm just thinking the only thing this could really be about is that this is his way to soften the blow when he decides to leave. And I don't think a lot of people are going to care if he goes. He gave everything that he did. He'll always, if he does it reasonably well, nobody's going to be yelling at him because he did what he did and he came from the youth team, and everybody's going to still support him. And I'm not going to say that his potential was lost. I just think that he had a ceiling. And I think that once you lose a little of that and you start losing, it's like, I hate to go back to Rocky, but Rocky, when he won all this stuff, he started to lose his motivation, and then Mr. T came in and killed him, right? This is what happens when you get the top, when you get the big contract. It's very difficult for these players now, especially because the money is so huge, for them to actually still be the best. Or they have to be on a team that they have to continually fight to keep their position. If you're on a team like Manchester City, you have to do that. If Pep looked at De Bruyne and said he's not given everything, he would sit his ass down. But he has people behind him to play that position. It's like, man, they lose to him for 2 months. That's it. Their season's over. They still win the treble that year. This is how we were. Manchester United was the same way. We'd lose somebody, and somebody else would come in because the competition has to be there. Marcus has not really had that competition on that side. And then when he did, he was still acting like an asshole. He didn't I don't want to go over this side or that. Whatever. What his actual role right now is to be a leader on that team and to get Garnacho to play correctly and to show what it means to be a Manchester United player. I think that he's still, in his mind, he still thinks he's 19, and he's not. That's not his role. It is, though. But anyway, I'm going to let it go there. I could talk about this forever. Tell me what you think. Do you think that it was warranted for him to come out like that? To me, it looks like he's a victim, and I don't like that. He's not a victim. He's a multimillionaire who plays a kid's game, and all we really want him to do is just go out there and just show like he gives a shit. That's basically it. You guys have a good weekend, and hopefully on Sunday we show up and do something in the city that they actually need. A loss.